What is the most dangerous thing you can do as an aspiring fashion designer? It's not failing or making a bad decision. It's not getting rejected. And it's not even lacking talent. The most dangerous thing you can do is spend so much time preparing to become a fashion designer that you never actually give yourself the opportunity to become one. And I've seen this over and over again. You watch the videos, you take your classes, your YouTube videos and all that, right? You learn pattern making and you learn your fashion sketching, you study designers, you save inspiration, you buy your supplies, you get everything organized and you're all set to go, right? And you tell yourself, I just need to learn one more little thing and then I'll be ready, right? And here's the problem. A little more never ends. And eventually, learning becomes a very sophisticated form of procrastination. I'm not talking down to you. I am talking to you because I understand you. Because I've been on this journey. I've worked in the industry for many, many years, and I've taught so many aspiring designers who desperately want to create, but somehow keep themselves stuck in preparation mode. And I understand why. Because learning feels safe. Creating does not. When you're learning, you can always tell yourself, well, I'm getting better, right? But when you actually create something, now you have to look at it. You have to make decisions. You have to take a risk, right? You have to discover whether the idea in your head actually works on paper or in fabric or on the body. And that's uncomfortable, But let's step back for a moment. Why are you learning all this in the first place? You're learning these things because you have something inside you that you want to bring into the world. You want to become a designer. You want to have ideas and turn those ideas into something real. That's the mission. And that's where the trap begins. Because somewhere along the way, learning becomes the goal instead of the vehicle. I call this the learning loop. And it looks like this. You learn something and then you realize there is something else you need to know. And so you learn that and then you discover another skill you need and so on. And you keep learning and then another and then another. And before you know it, you're consuming enormous amount of information. But you're producing very little, if any. You become extremely knowledgeable without necessarily becoming more confident. There's a huge difference between knowing about fashion design and being able to design. You don't become a fashion designer by knowing everything. You become a designer by designing. That's the shift. I've watched this happen with my students many times. Someone will tell me, I want to become a designer, but I still need to learn sketching. And so they learn sketching. And then they say, well, I need to learn pattern making. And so they learn pattern making and textiles and Illustrator, etc., and draping, and goes on, right? And yes, all of these things are very valuable, no doubt about it. They absolutely are. I'm not telling you to stop learning. Quite the opposite. I'm telling you to change the relationship between learning and doing. Because if you keep waiting until you know enough, you may never begin. That's the problem. So here's the system I want you to try. It's very simple. It's 4 words. Learn, create, reflect, repeat. Let me explain. First, you learn, right? You choose one thing you need to develop. Maybe it's fashion sketching. Let's just say that. Maybe it's learning how a sleeve is constructed. Maybe it's pattern making. Maybe it's understanding proportion or fabric. Learn enough to begin applying the skill. Notice I didn't say master it. I said learn enough to begin, because mastery comes later with practice. Then create something immediately. Don't wait 6 months and learn something else. No, don't wait until you're an expert. Use what you've just learned, right? If you're learning fashion sketching, then sketch something, create a design. Now, if you're learning sleeves, great, design a garment with a certain particular sleeve that you like. If you're learning pattern making, make a pattern, right? If you're studying silhouettes, for example, or proportions, create 3 different silhouettes. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is application. You have to apply what you've just learned. It's the doing of it. Because something magical happens when you move information from your head into your hands, right? Then reflect. Look at what you've created and ask yourself, do I like this? Do I not like it? Do I want to change something? Do I want to add something to this design? Right? Now something has changed. You're no longer learning randomly. Your own creative work is telling you what you need to learn next. That's a completely different experience. Step 4 is repeat, right? Go back to learning. But now you're learning with a purpose. Learn, create, reflect, repeat. And every time you go through this cycle, you become a little more capable, a little more confident, a little more independent. And eventually, you're going to look back and realize, you know what? I'm actually becoming a fashion designer. And this connects directly to something I talked in my recent videos, going into the unknown. Because that's really where creation and creating is. When you're learning, sometimes you know what the answer is or what it's supposed to be. But when you're creating, you don't know. You start with an idea and then you ask, what can I do with this? Can I add something? Can I change something? What happens if I make the sleeve bigger, smaller, shorter? What happens if I change the proportion? What happens if I combine these 2 ideas? And suddenly you're not following a formula, you are designing. That's where creativity begins. And sometimes you have to be willing to make mistakes or make something that doesn't work. Or maybe it's ugly because a failed idea isn't wasted. It gives you information. And that information becomes the foundation for your next idea. You see? The most dangerous thing aspiring fashion designers do is protecting yourself from all those things by never creating anything in the first place. That's dangerous. You don't need to feel confident before you begin. Confidence is often the result of beginning. You don't need to know exactly who you are as a designer. You discover that by designing. You don't need to have a completely developed aesthetic. You develop it by experimenting, by trying new things. And you don't need to know exactly where this journey is going to take you. Just start the journey. Enjoy the journey. You just need to take the next step. So here's what I want you to do. After this video, don't watch another fashion tutorial. Not yet. Instead, take something you've learned recently and make something with it. Give yourself 1 hour, right? 1 hour. Take your sketchbook, take a piece of fabric, take a pattern, take an idea, and create something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be portfolio ready. It doesn't have to impress anybody. It just has to exist. Because the moment you create something, you have crossed a line. You've gone from being someone who wants to become a designer to someone who is actually practicing being one. That's a huge difference. And I want to ask you something in the comments. Be honest with yourself. Which one are you right now? A, I'm learning. B, I'm creating. C, I'm stuck somewhere between the 2. Tell me in the comments. Look, becoming a fashion designer is not one giant moment. It's a collection of small moments where you decide to move forward. You learn something, you try it, you make a mistake, you adjust, you try it again, you discover something, and slowly you become the person you were trying to become. That's how transformation happens. Not by waiting, but by doing. Imagine 6 months from now, you look back at your work that you're creating today. Some of it might be terrible, some of it might be beautiful, some of it might surprise you, but every piece will tell you something about who you are becoming. And that's much more valuable than a perfect sketchbook full of ideas that you never develop. And give yourself permission to become a fashion designer before you feel like one. And if you're looking for more structure in the process, that's exactly one of the reasons I created Become a Fashion Designer. It's designed to give you daily structure and direction. So instead of constantly overthinking your next step, you can spend more time actually designing, experimenting, and building momentum. And of course, if you want a deeper industry-level fashion design education, you'll find all that inside Fashion Premier Academy. And if you'd like to explore the philosophy behind everything else that I'm teaching you, my book is called Design Your Future. Be a future designer. But here's the most important thing. Don't wait until tomorrow to start. Take what you're learning today and make something. Because you don't become a fashion designer when you finally feel ready. No, you become one when you start designing. Start designing now. I'll see you in the next video.